Morning, Jeff. How are you?
Alan, I'm really well. How are you?
I'm good. Do you know why the letter E is the only letter in the alphabet that gets presents from Santa?
Are we going to do Christmas jokes today? Is
I'm
that
just asking you a question, Jeff. Just
okay? All right. Why is the letter E the only letter in the alphabet that gets presents from Santa? I don't
because
know.
all the other letters in the alphabet are not E.
I just want to say that. Oh, do you know your Mary and Joseph, baby Jesus story from the Bible, Alan?
I do very well.
Okay. You know the wise men gave them two gifts. They gave them gold and frankincense.
Yep. Now,
Uh,
there's three, right? There's three gifts was given.
wait, there's myrrh?
That's good.
Yeah, thank you. Not rehearsed, by the way, to our audience.
Yeah. No. Hey, I am super excited about this. I can always look forward to Integrate Live with Benson. And it's one of my all-time favorite people to do this with. And so I'm excited about today. I'm excited that I get to kind of be the antagonist, and I'm looking forward to that.
When have you
Don't play
not
that
been?
role very
Right,
well.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's not, well, it doesn't come natural, so I'll work at it.
good. Good. Well,
That
hey,
was funny.
let's officially welcome our guests, Benson and Graham. Thank you for being here today. And to our audience, already 72 of you on the webinar. We had a near record breaker on this one. We had over 280 registrants. Let's go ahead and just get some of the housekeeping out of the way. We will be providing a recording of this. The recording will be up probably tomorrow. And please, we want this to be highly interactive. So let's start off by making sure the chat works. Hey, Rafi. Hey, Salam. Thank you. Chat's working. If you know a good dad joke or a Christmas joke, drop it in the chat, please. Santa Claus doesn't need to go to the hospital because he's got great elf care. That's a freebie for you. Use that one on the kids. The goal is for me to make my kids groan at least 5 times on Christmas morning by using your jokes. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Hey, I will tell you, I got fired from my very first job because I kept asking all the customers if they wanted smoking or non-smoking. Turns out the correct terminology was cremation or burial.
Oh, stop. That's terrible. That is not okay.
I got fired, but I learned.
Oh,
Good learning experience.
do you know the worst thing to give someone for Christmas?
Box of rocks, which I
No,
actually got one year
no.
from my brother.
A coffin.
That's the last thing you need.
That's the last thing they need. All right, we're ready to get going. We've got a full episode today, everybody. Benson's here from Opto 22. Graham is here from Flow Software, but Graham, you're representing not Flow Software as a product today. You're actually representing Timebase, a new historian today.
Yep. Representing it's the new Flow software product called Timebase. And, very happy to be launching it today. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And let's talk about the business problem that we're looking to solve first. Let's just frame this up for the audience. Alan, have you ever been in a factory and seen a piece of equipment, maybe a legacy piece of equipment, runs great, no problems with it? Everybody loves using it. Well, there is a problem with it. The problem with it is there's no data available for acquisition off of it. It's that old lathe that everybody relies on. It's that old piece of equipment, or it's a new piece of equipment. It's just an island. You can't get data off of it. Well, today we're going to show everybody on this webinar a pretty darn simple way with a lot of flexibility to put a piece of hardware on the plant floor, get sensors on that equipment, get the data into a standardized server or broker, and historize it, trend it, visualize it, get it into other applications, applications that are free. And so I'm really excited about today. Not only, as Graham mentioned, are we debuting a new product to the community, you are the first people to see this product. We are going to watch Benson work his wizardry and show us how you can easily use a small piece of hardware with a small footprint and make this happen.
I'm excited about it because I've had in my career over and over again having to make decisions on what do we historize and what we don't historize. And unlike alarms, right? Well, people think alarms are free, just click the button and you get an alarm. When you click a button for history, there's a cost. And that cost can be, you know, whether it's a license cost, which typically is the constraint, but then you have a cost of, hey, I'm storing this data, where's it storing to? Like if you're doing ignition, you're storing it into SQL, right? And so space and different things are going to be a problem where, you know, I can't tell you how many times we've had equipment that you deem as non-critical, and you make the decision not to store data in it. And then it has a problem and you go back and you don't have any analytics. You don't have any data on it because you chose not to historize it because you had a license barrier, right? So I'm excited to see this work. I haven't seen it work yet. I have full confidence in Benson and I have full confidence in Flow.
Well, you should have marginal confidence in flow. Hey, for the audience, I'm
I
gonna
have full confidence in Graeme. Let's put it that way.
that you should have. For the audience, just full disclosure. So Graeme and I are partners at Flow Software. This is Integrate Live is oddly enough doesn't pay for my mortgage, but it is a passion project that we all do together because we love community. So, but today, for the first time in Integrate Live history, I'm going to break character a little bit. I'm not going to play just the Integrate Live host. I'm also going to speak from the flow side around Timebase. The only reason I'm doing this is because Timebase is a free product. So it's not a sales pitch. It's just to help with some of the lift and answer some questions and perspective around experience in the time series world. So that's my disclosure statement. As you have questions today, please drop them in the chat. That would be great. We would love to get your questions. We will try to take them directly as we can, or if it's a question that we think has broader reach, we'll wait till the end and answer it then. So format today, Benson's going to kick off. He's going to do a review of the project for us. Then we're going to hand it over to Graeme. We'll have a little poll in between. Alan, if you can help me remember that. And then at the end, we are going to do a pricing presentation, talk about what the solution would cost, and then take additional questions. That sounds like a plan. Benson, if you're ready, I say we kick this thing off.
Sure. Let's get going. I guess what I'll do first is share my screen. And then I will turn off my main video here and go to there.
Awesome.
So first thing you probably see is, oh boy, here we go with PowerPoints. I promise you, I'm only going to do about 2 or 3 slides. So I'm eager as you are to get involved and get this stuff going. So I just really want to give you some context here. And we're going to talk about this notion of lighting up legacy equipment. So let's jump right in. Let's see if I can advance that PowerPoint. Just for context, this is, we're going to use a product, as Jeff mentioned, a piece of hardware, and it's called Groov Rio. And I'll use this to connect to essentially legacy equipment for the purposes of democratizing that data, whether we're going to historize it, get into the software applications, and so on. And Rio is just what we call, Edge IO for the IoT. It's rugged construction. It's got a bunch of built-in software tools. Really critical is that it's fully cyber secure. But probably the most important and fun part is that it has 10 software configurable I/O channels. That's going to allow me to connect to just about anything. And it's, of course, what sets it apart from a lot of I/O systems you might see on the market today. Ease of use was a major design principle when we built Rio, and everything I'll be demoing on the Rio, I'll be doing without downloading any external software. I'll just use the built-in web server. That means I just need to use a web browser. Pretty cool. And the communication options, I think they're pretty unmatched, and I'm going to get a chance to show you all that. And we'll show you Modbus, we'll show you OPC UA, MQTT, both strings and Sparkplug, and even REST APIs, so that we can liberate the machine data that you have with zero programming. So I won't be needing an intermediate PLC or external software or anything like that. I should be able to do all of this with just Rio and our end software applications. Now, on the topic of programming, I will not be using some included software on this product, which of course is, you might use for developing some edge-based logic. And those, of course, include CodeSys, Node-RED, or even if you are a developer and you like to write Python code, which you can run on this thing. We're not going to cover all that because in the spirit of doing this, I really wanted to take an approach where I would do a completely no-code implementation. So using only the built-in software on the device and my web browser to configure it. So with that, let's take a quick look at what the demo architecture is going to look like. First, we'll have a machine. And I'm going to switch to this cam real quick so you can kind of see my machine. So I've got, I'll get into this in more detail, just trying to give you a quick peek on what that looks like. We're going to take a machine and it has various instrumentation on it already. But I'm going to actually wire up 2 more pieces of instrumentation from that machine, and I'm going to tie it into this groov Rio I just described. So I'm going to go in there. I'm actually going to wire up to a thermocouple and a switch, a magnetic switch, and then I'm going to configure the data services resident on the Rio to allow it to communicate with virtually any kind of software through the various protocols that you see there. Also, I'll speak briefly about how I actually commission the system up because it is actually running right now, but we'll talk about that. And then I'll switch gears off of the Rio and into applications. So now I'll show you a number of different applications that are going to consume this data in one form or another. OPC UA clients, an MQTT client. I'll even bring up Ignition. And one that I'm really excited to show you is even just using Excel. So Excel directly to the Rio. So we'll get a chance to see that, and then I'll get an opportunity to pass it over to Graeme, who's going to show us how Timebase, the new time series database from Flow Software, is also going to be able to gather this data. And in that case, we'll be using MQTT because Graeme's in Texas. I'm here in Temecula, California, in our headquarters. So we want to be able to do that across the country. So I think that's enough. Let's jump right into demo time. So what I'll do is I'll close this guy down and I'm going to open up. Actually, let me switch my screen over to here so I can give you guys a brief tour of what I'm working with here.
So Ben,
okay, we'll start.
Ben,
Go ahead.
Say 3 steps just for the audience. I want you to catch it, and we'll mark each of those 3 steps. Step 1, wire up your existing legacy piece of equipment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Here we go. Step 1.
So step 1, first let's get a quick overview of what I'm working with here. You can see I have essentially a simulated machine I've got some switches here that will change like the stack light to let me know the status of the machine. And that's really important. You want to know what, is the machine running? Is it in unplanned downtime or is it in planned downtime? That will be indicated by by this stack light. And these switches are going to allow me to simulate those different actions. Then also what I have is I've wired in the power of the machine itself. So I know whether the machine is running or not. Next, I've got a really cool little sensor back here. It's a 4 to 20 milliamp level sensor. It's called a level rat. I got it from my buddy Benson Hougland, who is also part of the community. Thank you, Jason. Use this all the time. But this is a column of water that I'm actually measuring the value or the level of that water. Now, all of those things are already wired in into my Rio, and that was just for the sake of time. But I have a couple other pieces of instrumentation. The first one here is this thermocouple. So I've got a thermocouple. We can see it's not wired in, and I've also got a magnetic switch. And I'll use that magnetic switch as kind of like it's a dry contact, but it would be, probably in a real world application would be a proc sensor or maybe a photo eye or something like that. So I'm going to wire those guys into, and indeed, this is a Rio. So the other thing you'll notice about the Rio is it has Ethernet. So what I've done is I plugged in an Ethernet cable into the Rio. Naturally, you would do that for communications, but this way I'm doing it a little differently. I'm actually using PoE, or power over Ethernet. So I'm getting both power and communications over the same line. It's also important because while I could power the Rio with line power, 10 to 32 volts of DC, I actually wanted it separate so that if the machine power did go off, I would be able to track that, send it to software without it affecting the Rio itself. So I'm not powering the Rio from the machine, I'm powering it over PoE. So great. Now, the first step, I've got to wire up this instrumentation. So you might say, well, I probably need to, run out to the website and grab some wiring diagrams and so on. Actually, I've got a better way. When I plug this Rio into Ethernet, we're using standard IT tools like DHCP and DNS. Now, DHCP is just a dynamic way of getting an IP address from your IT infrastructure. And believe me, IT departments love this. I mean, how many times we've had to go to IT and say, hey, I need a static IP address for my device I'm going to put on the plant floor. And of course, being the Department of No, they're like, there's no chance that's happening. But in this way, I just connect to the network and I get an IP address and IT can manage that. Second to that, go ahead.
Sorry, Benson, in your experience, most IT departments have a DHCP server already in place. This is standard.
This is standard practice. Absolutely. In fact, in your home router, you have the same services. You plug into your network, you're going to get an IP address. And second to that, the device that you plugged in and obtained that IP address will register its host name with the DNS server. DNS is domain name service, and it just means that's a way for me to connect to that device without even knowing what its IP address is. And I'm going to use exactly that method to log into here so I can start my wiring. So I'm going to switch now to another screen, and I'm going to switch back to here, and I'm going to actually log into this Rio right from my browser. So how do I do that? Well, I've got an open tab here. And in this case, in the spirit of Rio or Integrate Live, I'm actually called it Rio-IL for Integrate Live. And here I am. Okay, I was actually logged in, so I'm going to log out because this is an important step. There you go for testing. So when I first log into the Rio, the most important thing I have to do is actually log in. And so I just logged out to go through that process again. And this is critical and speaks to the cybersecurity of the device. We don't want to put something on the network that just anybody can get to. So indeed, it does have an account, and you can see there, username and password, and it's encrypted. So I have an encrypted connection to it. So as I pass my username and password over the wire, it's all encrypted. So I will sign in. And I did create that account, and I'll show you that a little bit later about in terms of commissioning, but I'm so eager to get my stuff wired up, I'm going to jump right into it. So I'm going to click on, this is the home page of the Rio, so that's my only connection. I'll go into IO here, and we are, let's see, actually I'll go back to, let me go back to IO, see if I can get that to come up. There's my controller. And why is my IO not come out? That's a demo for you. So what I'm going to do first is actually go through and talk a little bit about that security and how the system was commissioned. So first step is the accounts. When I first logged into this system, I had to create an account to actually get it going. This does not have a default account. There are no backdoors to this system. So when I log in, I actually have to connect to the system, and it comes up and it says you need to create an admin user and password. And when I do that, that is the admin user and password for the Rio for all time. And that is stored on what's called a local account on the device. So once I have that, then I can go ahead and log in and I come to this home page. And so if I click into Benson right here, there's my local account information. I can change the password and so on. But I also created what's called a REST API account. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But it's just a way, one of the methods I can get data from this system is through the REST API. So what I want to be able to do is set up an account that has its own API key. So that was real quickly about the accounts. Now that I think I've got the IO up, and the IO channels are still not working right now. So Ben, can you take a look at that? Thankfully, I've got somebody in the wings there that's helping me out with that. So the other thing that I had to set up here, once I had my account set up, is the network. So in this particular case, I want to make sure that my network settings are set up properly. And so here I am on the network settings, and indeed I did connect to Ethernet 0. And as I said, I got a DHCP address, and that came in and gave me the address of 10.192.081. And that was right from IT, so IT knows this system is on their network and they can manage it. I also changed the default host name. There is a host name that's sitting right here on the side of the Rio on the label. That default host name is probably a little difficult to remember. So what I actually did here is create one that I could remember, and that of course is Rio.il. And then the last thing I have set up here is VPN. So it turns out that indeed we do have VPN on this. And right now it's reconnecting, it's disconnected, and you can turn on and off VPN based on how you need it.
Hey,
But
Ravi has a comment. Ravi
sure.
said, "Hey, Benson, check, make sure that your controller's enabled under your controller setting." He was watching your demo and thought he might have caught a flag for you.
We're not using this as a controller, so it's something else is going on. But don't worry, I'll get it sorted out.
Cool.
So real quick on that VPN story, while we were setting up for this demo, I was at dinner with my wife on Saturday night. And Graeme called, and apparently he was working late, and said, "Hey, Benson, I need a slight configuration change on your MQTT connection." And I said, "Oh, terrific. So what I'll do is just grab my phone at dinner, logged on, and I was able to access my Rio remotely, make that change, get back to Graeme, and he was all set." So it just speaks to how the power of these kinds of technologies will help even with remote access to the device. Great. So Ben is getting that squared away. It looks like we had a little hiccup here, which is odd for me. Normally I don't have to worry about that. So
This is why we like doing the this is why the pressure of the live demo, right? Because look, the reality is, to our audience, I have a feeling everybody that's commissioned a system has, or installed software for that matter, has probably had a time or two where it didn't go exactly as they wanted. The key is being able to work through it. And I can tell you from personal experience, when you're live and the camera's on you, it's almost impossible to troubleshoot, because then all of a sudden it's not just solving a problem, it's the doing it in person. So take your time.
So no worries, we're going to get this done. I think what I'm going to do is, because I've been hitting this thing so hard over the course of this morning, I think I may just go ahead and restart this thing, Ben. And while I'm restarting, okay, yeah, he's actually doing that for me. So a couple of things I want to talk about, and while we're waiting for that to come back, I'm going to talk about a little bit about where we're going to get this data. And there's a couple of applications I'll be using, and then we'll get back to wiring. The first one is ModScan. So we're actually going to use the ModScan Modbus client to be able to connect to this device and see the Modbus registers starting to come through. I'll also be using the free product from Unified Automation called UA Expert. And in this case, once I get this configured, I'll be able to actually see those data tags flowing into this OPC UA client, and we'll see that all drilled down once I get that set up. I'll also be using MQTT FX, which is, again, another piece of client software, but this is designed to work with, of course, MQTT. Now, in this particular instance, I did set up an MQTT broker, and I just went simple and free here. I just loaded up Mosquito, which is freely available on the internet, put it onto a server here, and I'll be using that to send my data from the Rio into the broker. And then I'll use this client to see all that data coming through, and we'll see it both in MQTT strings and in MQTT Spark Plug B. And this is also important because what I'll need to do is provide Graeme some credentials to get to that same broker. So I've created an opportunity for him to get into it so he can start historizing this data. And then I'll also be showing ignition, really collecting all of that information, bringing it into several different folders for each of the different ways that I'm moving that data. And then, of course, I'll save the best for last, which is really more fun than anything, is Excel. So I'm going to switch back over here to my Rio. Let's try to do a refresh here. Oh, thank you, Ben. We got that back up. So right there, we're in our I/O channels. So getting back to wiring this thing up, which is really what I want to do first. And the notion of, well, how do I wire up? What's that look like? So I go to the info tab here, and you can see that I have all the wiring diagrams already built in. So they're right from the interface. I didn't have to go download a user manual or go to the website. And I can see all kinds of different channels that are already in there. Current input, ICTD input, which is a temperature device, millivolt, the list goes on. The one I care about is this one right here, which is thermocouple input. And in this case, I'm going to use channel 0 for this thermocouple. So I'm going to switch my screen here so you can get a better view of how I do this. So here's my thermocouple, and I have a couple of colors on here that indicate the positive and the negative terminals. So for channel 0, I want to wire into channel 3. So we're going to do that. I'm going to use my punch down tool. I'm going to stick the red one into channel 3. Pull it out, and then it says the negative terminal into 2. So let's go ahead and do that. Push that in, out. There we go. Let's give it a tug test. Okay, the thermocouple is wired in. Okay, the next one I have is this magnetic switch. Now, normally you might look at it and say, okay, well, that's a discrete DC input. Well, kind of is, but in this case, this diagram says I need to have that powered. I'd rather do this without power. So we actually have an option that allows me to use a switch input powered. And that means I'll actually provide the excitation voltage from the Rio to power this switch. So let's see, what does it say? I want to go now into channel 1 on pins 4 and 5. And it looks like there's no polarity issues there, so I won't have to worry about that. Let me go ahead and give you a better view of what I'm doing. Let's plug it in and stick in the first lead. And then number 5, checking my documentation. Push that in. And boom, tug test. Okay, dishes are done, dude. All the wiring is done. Okay, let me get it out of my way in my chair here. Okay, we're going to switch the screen back. Now that we have that done, let's configure that I/O. So this is kind of a fun part.
Benson, one of the things that I've learned the hard way is that the tool that you provide to land the wires is engineered perfectly for the task of doing that. When you have a technician that decides, oh, I'm going to use my tech screwdriver, or I'm going to use something else,
Right,
to bend those things. So just, again, I think that ultimately at the end of the day, use the right tool for the right job. It works really well and it's effective. And so the best way to make sure you always have that tool is to buy multiple Epics and Rios.
and we do include the tool with every single Rio.
Yes, you do.
So there you go. And if you buy a lot of these, and a lot of our customers do, they have a lot of these tools lying around. All right, so we're going to go into the first channel here, which I wired the thermocouple to, and I'm going to go into configure. And we can see it's just a default configuration. I'll go to configure, and now we get to start doing some actually filling in the blanks. In this particular one, I'm going to call it machine temperature. So this is a type K thermocouple, and I'll get to that in a moment. But what's important about this name is it becomes essentially the single source of truth. So for OPC, MQTT, even the REST API, I'll always be able to refer to this signal, this type K thermocouple, as machine temperature, which is pretty cool. Modbus, we'll get to that. That's still all register based. But here's where the real magic happens in Rio. It's where I select the channel type. All of these channels are software configurable, and they're all right here, choose from a list. So I've got 4 to 20, 0 to 10, all my various thermocouples, thermistors, even some millivolt inputs. All of those I just select from the list. So in this case, I'll choose type K thermocouple, and look at that. All my scalings come in, all the linearization's done, automatic conversion to degrees C or degrees F, your choice. I can do some calibration if I wish, but I'm gonna leave all those default. The only other setting I'm gonna set here is something called public access. Now, public access is basically saying that this channel that I just configured, I want to make available to any external applications, REST or OPC or MQTT. So once I do that, I'm saying it's public, and then I can put a deadband on it if I wish. But I can also reveal a lot of other data points about this particular analog input, including its minimum, its maximum. So we'll actually store the min and max ranges of that thermocouple right in the Rio. So I want to be able to make those public as well. And last one is writable. Now you might be asking yourself, why would I write to a thermocouple? And indeed, you won't write to the value because that's an input, but I may want to write and reset the mins and maxes based on a batch, a shift, a day, or whatever interval I want. So that's why we make it writable. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then that one's all configured. And look at that. I've got my temperature coming right in. Let's just test it out. Right over here, I've got a cup of hot water. And look at that. There it goes. Up
There's
to
a question
90.
on somebody's asking, what if they choose the wrong type of input channel?
If you choose the wrong, if you have a type J and you choose a type K, you're going to get a linearization table for type
Right.
K. So that's really the difference is, you want to choose obviously the right signal for what instrumentation you have. But yeah, the profile will be different.
And
Okay,
that's where
so
the testing and making sure that
there you go.
whether it's a cup of water, whether it is if you have something that's known source, then you can test it and validate the
Yeah,
actual
and
quality.
maybe I have one of those infrared little
Yeah.
trigger things I can plug in there and do my calibration or whatever. But indeed, those things are set up automatically. I just got to choose the right one. That's one challenge of having options. You got to choose the right one, right? Okay, so I've tested and confirmed my thermocouple. I'm going to jump over here to my next one, which is channel 1. And in this case, I'll go ahead and configure it. And I want to call this one machine count because I want to know how many products this machine made. And again, this is a completely, no instrumentation, no PLC. I'm just getting data or IO data directly into the system. So again, I'm going to choose the channel type. I'll choose the switch input, power digital input, because we've got, this self-wetting contact that I'm providing power for. Then, of course, I do want to click the public access, but first, let me show you something cool. For given channels on the Rio, I can actually add features to that digital input. In this case, I can make it an on-time or off-time totalizer, on-pulse, off-pulse, frequency. All of these are built into the system, no programming required. So in this case, I'm calling it a machine count. Let's make it a counter. And that counter value will be stored right in the Rio, which also means I want to make the counter readable. So I'm going to read the counts and I can read its state. Also, I want to make it writable so I can reset the counts after a batch or after, again, whatever interval you want. I'll go ahead and save that. Now that it's saved, I can see and test my I/O. So I'm going to come back. Well, I'll leave this main screen on and I'll grab my little magnetic sensor I just wired up and I'll start testing it. Boom, boom, boom. Look at that. So I can see the state. And look at this, I have my count right there. So far I've made 12. So now I've tested my I/O, everything is up and running. That's exactly as I'd hoped. And then now I can see some of the other points I have in there. I've got my tank level, pull that out. There's my level. Let's take it back to, looks like I have 1.6 feet of water in that column. My stack lights are there, so I can test those, make sure everything's working, and looks like they are. Got a couple mechanical relays that are part of the Rio I can turn on and off. And then finally, I want to talk about the I/O services for a moment. There's a lot here. I'm not going to cover it all, but there's diagnostics in there, batch operations. There's even PID loops. So if you have an input and an output and you need to do closed loop control, yes, you can do it right on the Rio without any programming. But we're not going to use PID loops in this particular webinar. We've got SNMP, we've got streaming, blah, 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 all kinds of stuff here. One thing I do want to show you, though, is this device is also Modbus right out of the box. So if I go to this MMP calculator and I say, I want to do an analog channel read on module 0, Rio is always module 0, on channel 0, which is what the thermocouple's on, right there, Modbus unit ID 21 address 0. I don't have a manual in front of me, no Modbus TCP reference guide or lookup tables. It's all right in the interface. So you should be able to do everything that I'm doing without ever having to download any manuals or go to websites or anything. We built everything all in. And I did use all these to actually build my Modbus map. So that's that. We're in pretty good shape. I've got all my I/O working. As I said before, we do have control capabilities on here. Here's CodeSys. It's disabled, just showing you that I'm not using any logic in the background. Same with Node-RED. I know you got a lot of Node-RED folks out there that are avid fans, as am I. And a lot of people here at Opto, we love Node-RED, but I'm not using it in this configuration. So I want to do this no code. So we'll jump right to data service and get that set up. We'll do this rather quickly. The first thing I need to do, as you can see, it's disabled. So right now, nobody's getting any data, but I want to set that up. So I'm going to go to configure. And the first thing I need to do is set up the scan devices. So I'm going to add the local I/O system to this data service. And to do that, it's just one thing I need to put in here. The device ID, again, becomes the single source of truth. This is naming the device itself. So I'll call this one machine 1. and I'll leave everything else at defaults. I do have some other settings there. And then, of course, the protocols that I want to make available, I'll make them all available because I'm going to show you all of them. Okay, so we're going to go to save. And now we got machine 1 is my scan devices. So we'll just quickly go through and add my other configurations. First one is MQTT string. This is plain vanilla MQTT. No spark plug or anything like that, because we want to be able to show you both. The first thing, for those of you unfamiliar with MQTT, everything is based on topics, and those topics are kind of in folders. So I'm actually kind of creating that topic folder structure right here. So I'm going to type in integrate live, and then for the group topic, I'm going to call it groov Rio MQTT. So plain vanilla MQTT. I'm not going to use the third group. I will allow writes, not really going to do many writes, but I'll allow them anyway. So now I've created the folder structure for the tags that will go up. I just need to add a broker. So here we go. Let's type in the broker name. Now, because I need Graeme to be able to get to this, I did provide him access from outside the company to get to this broker. That's the address of the broker. And I just put in any client ID that's just got to be a unique value. It's really more for the broker. And then there is credentials to get to this broker. And I'm going to go ahead and type those in now. And I've already shared these with Graeme. And lastly, SSL. The tools are here. SSL is security. So this is encryption. I'm not going to use SSL for this demo because it is a demo and it's kind of like, let's say, a POC. But I implore you, the tools are there. You should always use security when doing things like MQTT brokers, OPC, and whatnot. I'm just going to not do it, go against how I usually do things, and not use security for this particular demo. So I'm going to click OK, and never. So I've configured MQTT strings. I've added the broker. We'll save that. We'll do the same thing for Sparkplug. Now, Sparkplug's a little different. We'll still need to put in some topics, but this becomes the topic namespace of the Sparkplug B payload. So here, if you're familiar with Sparkplug, there's always a group ID, edge node ID, and device ID. We already did the device ID. That was machine 1. So my edge node ID, what I'll do is here is go groov Rio Sparkplug B. So we know the difference. So we're not going to put in a primary host or primary host state. We're going to keep this simple. We're just going to get Sparkplug data up. We'll go ahead and allow writes. And then one thing that's really cool about Sparkplug, it does support store and forward. So if I am using a primary host topic, I can actually put my configuration in here of how much data I want to store should I lose connection to either the broker or the host application. It's all built in. So this just allows me to set some of the dynamics around that historical queue. But
Hey, Benson,
again,
I have a question about this. Do you
Sure.
have the ability to, like, what happens if I choose too much space here? Is the Rio am I gonna
Yeah,
lock
the
the
Rio is
Rio
not going to
up?
let you allocate more space than is available. And also you're putting constraints on here. So you're saying, if I'm offline for, 30 days, it's going to start, trunking. You don't want to fill up the unit with data. So that's why that's measurable there or configurable.
So it will be kind of the first in, first out. As
Yes,
it fills up, it's gonna start dropping off of the old estates.
exactly.
And then
What? Go
one
ahead.
more question. I know the answer, but I'm still gonna ask it.
I hope I do.
One of the issues that I've run into is the ability to be able to publish to two different brokers. You can add multiple brokers, but what that does is in the event you lose one broker, it's going to fall over to the redundant broker. Is there any opportunity in the future to be able to send to two different brokers?
Yes, what we're working with right now is the native MQTT client built into Rio.
Yep.
And at the current time, we allow you to publish to one broker and set up fallback brokers. So in the event we lose connection, we'll roll over. But if you want to publish to two brokers simultaneously, you could do that with strings and Sparkplug as two different topics, which is kind of what I'm doing here. But if you need that kind of functionality, we have other tools that allow you to do that.
Yeah, I'm doing it in Node-RED too. You can
Node-RED
publish
is, classic example.
Sparkplug B they have a great node for Sparkplug B, and so we're doing a very similar thing. But Be great to be able to just choose a second broker.
Natively, right.
Yeah.
Okay, I've just configured Sparkplug
Dropping
B.
that hint.
I'm sorry?
Dropping that hint.
Yeah.
Be great. Be awesome. Would love
If
it.
anybody else has feature requests, go ahead, drop them in. We'll take a look at it. Thank you. Thank you, Alan. All right, so I'm going to save that configuration, and boom, we have everything done. We've got our scan devices, OPC UA server, MQTT. There's some other things I can do here, set public access for PID loops and stuff, but I don't need to do any of that right now. Okay, now I'm going to come back to status, and we're still disabled, so I'm going to enable it. Now I'm firing up the software on the Rio that's now basically going and doing a inventory of all the tags and all the metadata, all the various topic information, putting that into essentially a dictionary file, and then I'm setting that up so OPC servers can come and get to it. And on MQTT, I'm going to start publishing my data to an MQTT broker on change. For Sparkplug B, I'll actually do one other step and issue what's called the birth certificate. So I'm sending that up to the broker so others can see all the tags that are coming in. So I've kind of went through some of the initial configuration. I talked about accounts and set up REST API. There's two functions that you don't really need the data service for. That's Modbus, REST API. I've already set up my REST API account. I've confirmed my network settings. I did want to mention that one of the important things, since we're doing time series data, you want to make sure your timestamp is proper in the right time zone. So indeed, this has time settings, so I can confirm that my time zone is correct. In America, Los Angeles is for me.
Benson, I just started getting data on my broker or on my TD
that's good to know.
I've got both.
Yeah, as soon as I fire up that data service, you got a birth certificate. You probably should be starting to see data. In fact, I'll just switch a couple of data points here, and you should be able to see those change. So there we go. It's in the hot water. Now it's back out. Again, Shell's on here, so you want to write your own Python programs or whatever. That's a webinar for another day, but it's right there among a bunch of other settings. But one thing I did want to mention before I move on to my software, and that is security. I told you that it's imperative that we have a cybersecure device, and indeed it's there. And all the tools to configure that is also all built in. Creating certificates, updating certificates, generating CSRs, all that's built in. No need to go to OpenSSL tools or something like that. So I have a valid certificate that was signed by my IT department, so they know this device is secure. And finally, firewall. This is one of the few IO devices out there that have a fully implemented firewall for all the services that are running on this Rio, running or not. In the case of Ignition Edge, I can run it on here, but I'm not running it now. But all of those services are set up, and it also means I can block any inbound traffic. And that's what a firewall does. It's important to note. Firewalls block inbound attempts to get to the device. So I can literally start blocking off some of these services if I don't want them exposed on the network, or allow only ones that are secure, like getting to groov manage. But the good news is, and that's important, of course, for OPC, because a client has to hit the Rio on an inbound port to get its data. Same with REST. But MQTT doesn't need that. MQTT is outbound only, so I don't have to open any inbound ports. There's no MQTT server on this device. It's a client, so it's all outbound. So just to make sure you know that the firewall is in there. We can actually protect this thing. In fact, I could block all the Ethernet ports and only access it over VPN. It's another level of security that you could do. All right. I think we're done here with Groove Rio. Let's show some of that software I kind of previewed for you. First is Modbus. Now I did create some screens here. Let's pull up the inputs and just to make the configuration a little quicker. And then I'll go ahead and open up my input registers as well, just to show that we're getting data. Right now it says data uninitialized because I haven't connected yet. Because as soon as I connect, I get like 3 minutes to do this, because this is a you have to pay for this software, but I am using the 30-day free trial. Put in the host name, a little bit of nagware, and boom, there we are. So let's take a look. We've got our registers up here. This particular register at 4609 at function code 3 is my tank level. There you can see my tank level going up and down. And let's go ahead and drop some temperature in the hot water. And there we go. So we got Modbus data on the input registers. Terrific. We also have Modbus data on my input statuses. So you can see those changing there. There we go. So Modbus is done. Pretty simple. Again, I did have to, go into here and put in the right unit ID and the address that I'm going to get to that data, but that's all that data is available. Modbus is done. So let's just drop that down. Next one, OPC UA. So again, I've already started the software. This is free software. I'll go ahead and let's see if we can. I'm going to open a previous configuration just to make things a little easier. It's integrate live. There's my OPC UA server for Opto. Let's look at the properties. And there it is. I'm simply connecting to that OPC TCP endpoint, which is the Rio on port 14840. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now I can go ahead and connect to that thing, assuming it's going to work. And let's see, what's the notifying owner? I'm going to close that and restart it because I've left it open. And let's go ahead and try that. And let's file open to my, figure out why I'm not getting that going. And connect. Yeah, that looks like I made an error on my OPC UA server. I'll go back and look at that while Graeme is doing his part, because Graeme's not going to be able to get to my OPC server anyway. Why? Because it's on my local LAN. So you can't, unless I open a port for the corporate firewall to get in, which, trust me, that's never going to happen. We're going to let that go. Let's jump over to MQTT. First thing I want to do is connect to that Mosquito broker I set up on Demo Groove. So I'll go ahead and connect to that. There we go. And let's just start scanning it. And there we go, demo.groov.com. There it is. And here's my two topics that are coming in. One on MQTT strings. There they are. There's machine one. And I'm not getting, okay, there's some data.
You like
modules.
You like MQTT-FX over Explorer because of the parsing of the Spark-Plug-B?
Yes, which I'm going to get to in a moment, but it works great for MQTT strings as well. And there's my machine temperature. And the MQTT Explorer is great. The only problem is it doesn't parse Spark-Plug-B payloads, which is why I'm using the free trial of MQTT-FX. But here's an important note about MQTT plain vanilla. It doesn't issue this burst certificate like we do in the same manner as Spark-Plug-B. So all I have here is data that has been changing, right? No other data is showing up. If I start changing some other data, look at that.
That was quick.
They start, oh yeah, it's very, very fast. And then if I go ahead and, well, I already have my temperature, but let me change my tank level. Now I'm starting to get my other data. Now that's not to say you can go through configurations and set up QoS and retain flags and all that other stuff. You can do all that, but it's a little bit more effort. The beauty of Spark-Plug-B is a couple of things. One, as the data starts to come in, it all comes in a big Spark-Plug encoded payload, which is highly condensed, highly compressed, sent over, and then as it comes in, I get this one topic, which is the edge or device ID, and all of my data is encapsulated in that. And yep, to your point, Jeff, this is why I use my MQTT-FX, so I can just see all those data. As I'm changing everything, the payload changes. More importantly, I have state, and this is critical. In industrial applications, you want to know that when it published data, that is the last known data and that it's valid. And Sparkplug provides state. MQTT does not. As soon as some of those others start to fall off, I know the last value, but I don't know if it's still connected. So MQTT Sparkplug is a lot better in terms of connecting to OT and essentially OT systems or anything that's industrial. So that was, go ahead.
I was just checking. It looks like a license for MQTT-FX is only around €50. So for the participants, yeah, it's a price, but if you're going to be working in Sparkplug, probably worth it. Yeah.
And in the interim, you can get by with Explorer. You're just not opening up that packet to see the data inside, but you can absolutely see all your messages flowing. Okay, second to the last thing, real quick. I'll breeze through this quickly. I brought up Ignition. This is Ignition Designer, and I have all these tags in here. But if I look at the tags, let's say for Modbus, everything is bad right now. So the reason is because my trial has expired. Again, I'm using software that I can download and use for free. So what I want to do is come over here to my Ignition instance. Indeed, my trial is expired. So I'm going to sign in to reset that. Reset the trial. Now that that's up and running, cross our fingers. Great. Now all my Modbus is working. Now, what's cool about, Ignition is, one, it's industrial software. It's arguably my most favorite industrial software. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, but one of them is its connectivity options. I can use the Modbus driver in Ignition to go and map all of those unit IDs and addresses into tags, and I'm seeing all that data coming right in through here. A little bit of work, no question about it. It's Modbus, but it works, and Ignition handles Modbus really well. Now, my OPC wasn't working on my other one, so I'm wondering if it'll work here. And it's probably a configuration change I made or improperly, but all of my OPCs will come in as well. I'll go back and look at that. One thing about Ignition is it's both an OPC-way server, meaning it can expose its tags to any OPC client, but it's also an OPC client. So I'm using the client functionality in Ignition to talk to the server on the Rio. So that's all my OPC tags coming in. Same thing with MQTT strings. That actually does work really well in Ignition. So I can use that information to come in. Again, I haven't connected that yet, so I will pull up the spark plug tags, assuming that those are working, and they are. There's my device control, my machine count. It's at 12 right now. Let's go ahead and move that up. Yeah, look at that. So I'm getting my machine count. Oh, end of shift. Well, I can just come in here and write to that, and I just can clear the counter back to 0. So read-write functionality with Sparkplug is a lot simpler. I've got my tank levels in there. I've got, everything's in there. Oh, bad not found. I must have typed something in incorrectly. But there's the machine temperature as well. So there you go. The last one I'm going to show you, and again, cross my fingers it's working. This
There is a setting
brutal demo
for those that because I ran into this. If you want to read strings, you have to go into your distributor or your distribution module. I think it's either that or your engine, and then you have to go in and check the box that you're going to read JSON.
Actually, what you do is you set up a custom namespace. So if you set up a custom namespace and you put in the topic space, which is what I did here, then I know I can go and read those and they won't be Sparkplug tags. The problem with non-Sparkplug tags as well is they're coming through as strings. So I don't know what data types they are. In Sparkplug, I do. MQTT, I don't know. It's come through as a string, but is it actually a float, an int, a Boolean? I don't know that. So you kind of have to know a lot of stuff to use regular MQTT, where Sparkplug, all that's handled for you. Okay,
Yeah,
last demo.
Ask Graeme.
I got to get this over.
You can ask Graeme for a story about Ignition tags being shown on an MQTT broker and not knowing the data types and the problems that causes.
Right.
I'd like to share a story in a bit.
Okay, last one, and then I just kind of excited about this because we all know Excel. You can't necessarily call it free software, but there's no question that pretty much everybody has it. And if you don't, it's, for $99, you can get all of Microsoft Office, which includes Excel, $99 a year. So I'm just using Excel here. And in the behind the scenes is a little bit of a macro, essentially, which is just Visual Basic code. And I'm using the REST API. So what is a REST API? Real quickly, I'm going to take you back to Groove Manage, and I'm going to come right down here to Info and Help. And look at this. The REST APIs are built right in. So I actually load in a new tab, the Swagger UI. So it's just Open API. And there is all my REST API calls for this Groove Rio for all of the I/O. I can test right from here. I can test out these endpoints. And all I did was do that. I want to bring back all the analog values. And I've got to put in a device and module index. But as I enter this stuff, I can test the call. Then I go back to Excel. And in my Visual Basic code, I just simply say, oh, that's the endpoint, pull the data back. So let's show what this looks like. And by the way, I'm going to mention right now that this particular Excel document is going to be made available as when we send out the follow-up and the video recording. We will share this. The other thing I need to put in here is the API key. So if I go back again to that account, users, REST API, let's come down and get this API key for the REST API user and go back to Excel and plug that in. And then we will get the device config. Oh, jeez. Oh, I typed it in wrong. I can see. I typed in the Rio. I put a space in there and I shouldn't. So there's your error checking. Now we'll go ahead and get device. Okay, one module found. Whew. All right. Module 0. Always Rio is module 0, but this Excel document will work with Epic as well, in which case you can choose any module on the Epic Blackplane. But look at that. I just made the call and I went out and pulled back all of the data from the Rio into Excel. So I can change a value. Let's just change one of my stack lights and refresh, and I should see the values come back as changed. So pretty slick that I can just pull all that data, including, its min, max, the counts. I was at 5. Quickly get that up to a bigger number, refresh, boom, now it's at 11. I can also write to the device. So in this case, it kind of pre-filled it out. I can turn on and off my mechanical relay. If you see right down here at the bottom where my finger is, if I turn that on, that relay just came on. So now I'm actually doing control from Excel.
That seems
on
good.
you. If you want to do that, that's your call.
Did you just make Excel SCADA?
Yeah. I would not use it as SCADA, but now here's another example where we're actually logging data. We all use Excel because we love charting. And, Graeme is going to show you way better charting with the Timebase product, which is also free. So I'm not going to get a whole bunch into it, but, I can easily add, like here I'm bringing in the temperature value. I'll bring in the mid value. I'll bring in the max value, add those items to the chart, and then I can start the timer. So let's see. There we go. So there's my minute. And you need 10 values for it to show up in Excel. No big deal. I'm just going to make some temperature changes here. And there we go. Just need about a few more seconds. And I'll start seeing some of that data getting plotted out. And all that data is being logged right here in these cells. So you can see that as it goes out on a 3-second interval, which is configurable right up here. I'm saying interval is 3 seconds. Boom. I'm now trending my data in Excel. How cool is that? So to wrap it up, we instrumented a device, we landed some instrumentation, we configured that I/O, and then configured the data services for REST API, Modbus TCP, OPC-UA, and MQTT strings and/or Sparkplug. What that means is there's lots of options for you to get this data from a legacy piece of equipment into whatever software you wish to use. Of course, software that supports any of those different communication methods. So really giving you a lot of choices. Yeah, I showed you Ignition. I happen to love that. And I really love this new Timebase product from Flow Software and their ability to pull all this data in. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to you guys.
Well, how generous are you feeling today? It's Christmas. You feel generous, Benson?
I feel generous every day.
Okay, really good. You're a generous guy. What about giving that Excel doc away? Would we?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. We've already kind of buttoned it up. We'll make it freely available. Use it your own risk.
Yeah.
It's just an Excel document with some code in it. Do whatever you want with it. But yes, we'll make that available for free.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. If you'll send that to me, I'll include it on an outbound mailer to everybody that was in attendance, and we will have that out to you tomorrow or next week.
Great.
Awesome.
Meanwhile, I'm going to look into my OPC-UA and figure out why that did not go. Oh, I never configured it.
Benson, can I ask a question quickly?
Yes.
When you were configuring your communications, your MQTT, your Sparkplug, your OPC, are you exposing all the tags, or do you select which tags you can expose?
So that's a great question. Let me change my camera so I don't look so weird. You select which tags you want to make available via MQTT through that public access option. and that's granular per channel. So whatever channels or whatever other data points I want from that, like min, max, latch, count, I can select which one of those will end up in the MQTT packet.
It's important to understand that those are by default not enabled, right? So
Yes.
when you go to create an IO point and you connect that IO point, if you want to publish that and make it public, you have to choose to turn that on.
Correct. And kind of gets back to, dare I say, the zero trust model. Everything is off until you turn it on.
All right.
You said something there just a second ago, Benson, about you didn't want to look foolish on the camera. Somebody,
Too late.
no. Somebody in the chat said I'm trying to find it. Said that, oh, there it is, that you look, their girlfriend walked by while they're watching this and they thought you looked like the lead singer for Metallica, James Hetfield.
Ooh,
So
I'll take that. That
hey,
was a generous
impressive.
compliment.
all right, hey,
You know,
listen,
he is getting old.
stop.
Hey,
Stop. Just
Really?
let it be a compliment.
Sorry, Benson.
No, it's all right.
Let's take a quick poll. Audience, we need to hear from you. Come back to us real quick. Put down the cell phone. Pay attention. Got a poll for you. Please help us out with this. We're trying to get a sense of what protocols you use most and what operating systems you rely on. So if you would take these couple questions, and then while you're doing that, thank you. I see you're already starting to fill them out. Will you please, if you're interested, register for our next episode? It's going to be the last Wednesday of January. We are bringing together industry experts from Flexware system integration, from LSI system integration, from Sepasoft, from Kepware, to have a roundtable conversation around how to build high performance into your OT/IT systems. So that's from high performance data acquisition to data transfer, from control systems to the MES layer and back. It is going to be decades of these men and women's experiences talking about what works, what doesn't, lessons learned. And I think we're going to use some Kepware. I'm actually really excited. Sam Elsner, who is like a Kepware guru, he's been there forever. As a sales engineer, support engineer, he's going to show us some of his absolute favorite things that you can do with Kepware that most people don't know about to build those high performance systems as we're having that conversation. Dropping the registration in the chat now for that. We set some, I think we have had over 100 people on this event already. Thank you for that. If you register, also share it for me. It would be a huge help. All right.
Hey, Jeff, before we continue, I had to go to the doctor and have my 50-year-old prostate examination done. And after the examination, the nurse came back in the room. The worst 3 words you can hear after a prostate exam was, "Who was that?"
It's fallen completely deaf on me.
Doctor comes in, does a prostate exam. Nurse comes in.
Who
after,
is that? Oh my
"Who's
gosh.
that?"
That's terrible. That's terrible. I apologize to everybody. Let's go back to Christmas
That was
jokes.
funny when I have to say it twice.
Here we go. Thank you. Poll is wrapping up. Graeme, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All
Graeme,
right. Excited.
if you don't mind, Graeme, let's open up the PowerPoint. Let's just real quick position Timebase, because one of the things that I've had a lot of people asking about is, wait a minute, you're doing a free historian. Why would you do that? What's the catch? How could it be free? Must not be any good. To be determined, I guess. But yeah, if you don't mind sharing, Graeme, I don't have the PowerPoint. Do you?
No problem.
Sorry, I probably should have been a little bit more prepared. I think the danger of Integrate Lives as hosting them is like you start to just take all
You
live
used to not
demos
having to be ready.
a bit loose. Yeah, a bit loose. Benson, you're getting a lot of accolades for your presentation. Well done.
Thanks,
Okay.
but that was a disaster. There was a lot of things that went wrong.
No, it was honest. It was
We're good.
honest.
Never a disaster. It's
As long as you
always
guys get the point, right?
I'll take honest and transparent anytime.
Are you seeing my screen, Jeff?
Yeah, you're doing
Yeah,
a great
we
job.
see it.
Look
Okay.
at all right, so let's talk about Timebase. Why a historian? Real quick story. my background, Canary Labs executive director for, I think, like 7 or 8 years. It's what got me into this industry. It's how I met Alan. It's how I met Graeme. It's how I met Benson. It's how I met a lot of you. Had an idea at Canary about doing a free historian. It wasn't the right fit for Canary. Didn't fit the business model. Graeme and the team developed a historian inside of Flow software, inside of the product, just to buffer data locally for a couple weeks if you didn't have a historian to do analytics. When I got over on the Flow software side, Graeme said, "Hey, I think I've actually built a pretty cool historian here. What do you think about us starting to put this out on the market?" And Graeme said to me, could we charge for it? And my thought, and I think Graham's thought, ultimately came back to, why would you? At the current day and age, the reality is there's way too many manufacturers, small to medium-sized manufacturers, that find themselves in one of two camps. They either don't have any historian or they've got a crappy one. They can't reliably get data into it or out of it, or they don't have good trending tools. It's just not optimized for their needs. So Graeme and the team spent, gosh, Graeme, 6 months to take.
Pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah, well, quick to you, not to me. Spent 6 months full time developing the solution stack that you're going to see. We're releasing this version 1 today, this afternoon. It's been in beta testing since end of September. Version 1 is going to have, I'm sure, some sticky edges, some sharp points, but let's talk about what this thing is. It is 4 different tools that are part of what we call the Timebase Historian solution. That is your data loggers, we call them collectors, your time series data historian, a trending tool called Explore, and a full REST API to access that data. Those 4 components are part of the solution. You can download them this afternoon from timebase.com. How much does it cost? It really is free. And it's not just free for the first 30 days or first 30 minutes, it's free forever. Our commitment to you is that we will maintain this product stack long term. We will continue to develop this product stack, and we will support this product stack, all complementary. We're doing this because we believe wholeheartedly that manufacturers need to have data management taken care of, or they're not going to be able to move to the next stage. They are getting left behind. There's way too many operations that are critical that are not historizing data. What is the business model? Great question. How can you trust it? Going to come back to that. So let's just real quick hit these 4 things, and then Graham's going to do a demo. Standard protocols supported for the data logger, MQTT, Sparkplug, and OPC UA. It is an open sourced plugin. So if you want to write your own custom collector, you can. We will continue to add certain collectors to this long term, maybe like an API access and other things. Those might be outside the scope of completely free. Frankly, we just don't know yet. But it's an open source plugin, and we have already commissioned the UA, the MQTT, and the Sparkplug logging. Store and forward, native, built in. All right, next part. Let's talk about the historian.
Just to add,
Yeah.
Store and forward's also built into the SDK. So if you build your own plugins, you get that out the box. You don't have to worry about engineering that part of it.
Awesome. Thank you, Graeme. What is the technology of the historian? It is a NoSQL file-based solution. So you create data sets inside of the historian. Every data set has its own list of tags. It has its own list of history, timestamp, value, quality. It is lossless compression. So you are not losing data. We're not interpolating data. Whatever gets logged gets written. Whatever gets written is what you have long-term. I think what you're going to see today is that you don't need to have any database skills to manage this application. This is built for operations. And most importantly, it's performant. So it has been tested and tested in continuous operation for more than 25,000 writes per second. Not 25,000 tags, 25,000 writes. So you can have 50, 100,000 tags. There's not a hard cap on the tag limit. We have tested it well beyond 25,000 updates per second. We are saying at this point, we feel confident at 25,000 writes per second. In my experience, that covers almost 90% of site operations.
So
And
there's a question about OPCDA when I'm very
Yeah.
interested in your
That
answer.
go replace it.
Yeah.
We're not.
Yeah. Well, the problem that you have with OPCDA is that you just you remove your front door, you remove your windows, and you pretty much just let anybody in the house they want to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does require a Microsoft infrastructure for DA
Yeah.
to even work. So
I get why the question's asked.
Yeah.
I totally understand it from controls,
Get it.
but you got to change. You got to fix that.
Yep. Or in this case, put something middleware in between. Invest.
Yeah. Use Kepware. Use something that can talk at the local level, and then go into OPC UA or MQTT.
Yeah. Even Ignition will do that.
Spencer, we're going to make a t-shirt that says "Death to DCOM." You get the first. Explore. What good is a historian if you can't see the trends? Here's the problem with a lot of these open source IT top-down solutions for Edge Historian. Not a great trending tool that anyone can walk up to and build their own trends. Real-time trending, being able to do ad hoc trending diagnostics, throw it into a SCADA package. That's what we need. I will just note for the group, Explorer is releasing as beta version. So Historian and Collector and API, version 1 released this afternoon. Explorer will be included. Just know it's going to have some features that haven't made it yet. You might hit a bug. It is being marked as beta. And finally, the REST API to get all of the data out. Graham's going to do a demo on that. We don't need to spend time now. And we're supporting this thing through tickets. You'll be able to launch your tickets right out of the knowledge base. Knowledge base first. If you don't get an answer, do the ticket. We will support you on this. And long-term business model, we're going to offer additional modules and functionality on top of the basic historian package. Maybe you need a really good custom batch reporting solution or a data ops solution. They will be very affordable, subscription-based modules. And when I say very affordable, I really mean that you can support the continual development of the product if you choose, but completely optional licensing on the historian. Okay, Graeme, you ready to do a demo?
Absolutely.
Off you go.
Thank you. So let's just talk a little bit about the architecture options, and then I'll jump into some demo. Pretty much the 4 components that Jeff's already spoken about. You can install them on Windows, you can install them on Docker, you can have a combination, you can put them all on one server, one VM, you can distribute them. So for what we're going to show today, we're going to start with the historian in the center. We're not going to talk about OPC UA because I can't connect into Benson's OPC server, but that is one of our plugins. As soon as a collector with any plugin connects to a historian, it's going to create its data set. So you don't have to go and configure anything on the historian. You just have to configure your collector and point it to your historian or historians. On MQTT side, we can connect via vanilla, string-based MQTT, or as I'm going to demonstrate today, how we configure Sparkplug-B plugins. And that's great. So now you've got your logging sessions, you have your historian where the data sets are being managed, the data is being indexed, the duration of the data or the size of the data has been managed for you, so you can configure it to auto purge the data if you want to, and it works similarly to the MQTT Sparkplug store and forward, where your oldest data will be purged first. You can obviously override those settings, and if you've got enough disk space, you'll just keep that data forever. The next step is to actually now get data out and see the data. So we've got 2 options. We've got our Explorer trending tool. We're going to show you that. That makes use of the REST API to get the data through to pretty much any web browser. And then we also have direct access available to the REST API or any clients or any apps that you want to build on top of the Timebase platform. So today, what I'm going to go through is I'm going to connect directly to Benson's Groove Rio in California. I'm sitting in Texas.
Well, to my broker, to be clear.
Correct.
I'm not giving you access. I haven't given you the VPN credentials to get to my
Thank you, Benson. Yeah, to your broker. All right, let me get into, there we go. So what I thought I would do is just quickly take you guys through, obviously, if you're wanting to try Timebase out, I'm going to take you through just a couple of quick steps of what you need to do to go and get it. So if you go to timebase.com, this is the Timebase website. It's obviously being run by Flow Software. There's a lot of information on here. A lot of this information Jeff's just taken you through in his PowerPoint. But really what you want to do is you're going to hit this Get Started button. We're going to ask you to register just so that we know who you are, to be able to support you and chat to you if we need to. You're going to review your system requirements, and you're going to then choose your platform. So let's go down to that part. You've got two options, really. You've got your Windows option, and you've got your Docker or Linux option. So if we go into, let's go into this option here for Windows. What this link is going to do is it's going to take you straight into our knowledge base, take you straight to the quick start for the Windows installer. I'm going to scroll down. There's a bit of information, but what's probably most important is this link here. This link's going to take you to the installer, allow you to download it. There's some great videos here, video about the installation process. And then as soon as you've installed it on Windows, what's going to happen is you're going to get this Timebase Services Starter. So I'm going to just can this for a second. So here are my services. I've gone through that installation process. This is what you're going to find. There's a Timebase Service Starter. It should be running automatically after you've done the installation. Then you're going to go to this link here, and you're going to open that up inside your browser. And what you're going to find is a control panel. This control panel basically gives you the capability to configure Timebase stacks. So here is a stack of different Timebase components. So of course, we've got our Historian component. We've got our Explorer component in beta. We've got a simulator, which I will show a little bit later. And at the moment, we've got our vanilla MQTT connection to the Opto broker. The configuration at the moment is done via a JSON file, but in due course, we will add a GUI that will help with this configuration. All right, let's look at the other option. The other option is Docker. I'm going to actually run my demo today out of Docker. Jeff, do you possibly have the results of the poll?
Yep, I do.
See?
I'll pull those up. Graeme, do me a favor if you would, just for time.
Yeah.
I want to probably simplify a bit.
Sure.
And you've got about, let's say, 10 minutes. So
Okay.
let's focus on logging data. Let's get to that broker, get into the Historian, and then let's do a quick show of it on the trends. And then we can do I'm going to build a full project this afternoon, and I'll include it in the email out to the audience as well.
Right. Cool. So for those that are familiar with Docker, you can come in here, you can pull the image. We also make available some Docker Compose files, both for Linux as well as for Windows. And that is going to take me straight into my demo. Here is my Docker desktop. I've got an equivalent stack. I've got my Historian. I've got my MQTT vanilla. I've got my Spark plug, which is the one I'm going to actually configure now for you guys. I do have my simulator juice factory going as well. So first thing I'm going to do is just take you into the administrator of the historian. This is what the administrator UI looks like. At the moment, I've got two data sets. I've got the Opto data set for MQTT vanilla, and I've got a juice factory one. I'm not going to go into that right now because I want to configure my Spark plug. This is the UI to configure my collectors. It's going to look the same for all of the collectors. Obviously, for the first thing that you need to do is you need to configure your logging session. Here you're going to see the different protocols. I'm going to select Sparkplug B. Going to give it a name. And this is the name for the data set that I'm going to be targeting inside the historian. So that data set doesn't exist at the moment. As soon as I get this collector running, it's going to automatically create that data set in the historian for me. I need to configure my historians that I'm targeting. In this case, I've got one, but this is a great architectural benefit here. You can configure multiple historians. So I could be sending data to multiple historians in a redundant mode. Maybe one on premise, my local historian, maybe one in the cloud if I wanted to. And then the last thing that we need to do is we need to pull in our settings, and this is going to be specific to the data source type. I'm going to use this little tool just to reset. It's going to reset my settings to the Sparkplug B default settings. And you can see there's some documentation in here. It tells you what you need to do, host, port, etc., your authentication. I'm going to, and hopefully this is on my clipboard. There we go. Save my settings. This is going to take us to the Sparkplug topic. And I'm going to set this active. All right, so I've started up my session. I can see here that it is connected to Benson's broker, and it has subscribed. If I go back to my historian now, and I refresh, I now see I have a new data set sitting here. So it's been automatically created, and it already has 30 tags. Those are the tags that are sitting in Benson's Rio.
And
Notice,
purge age and you're ready to go there a bit.
I was just about to go there, yeah. So the purge age is a number of days. So that's how long it's going to keep the data. If it's 0, that implies it won't ever purge. The purge size is, if you prefer to, you can set a size of data and it will start purging when it reaches that size. We do warn you when you start getting close to these sizes, but we don't stop logging. So you do need to be aware of it. Let's go into one of these now. I'm going to go into the Sparkplug. What we're going to actually see now is the tags that have been created. So these are all the tags that are currently being pushed onto that topic. Let's just show you very quickly. If I needed to edit something, I can go and edit a single tag at a time if I want to. In this case, what I'm going to just show you quickly, I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to add some metadata to all of these tags in one go. So we know that this is all coming from machine 1. So I'm going to create a field called machine, and I'm going to set it to 1. So if I had multiple Rios on multiple machines, I could go and set that metadata up. I'm going to save that to all 30, and that's come through here. There might be some other things that I want to do. Jeff, I am conscious of time.
Oh, you're fine.
Going as quickly as I can. Yeah, I'm going to edit. These are 4 temperature-related tags. So I'm going to do something quite similar. Add another field. I'm going to call this my measure metadata, and I'm going to put in temperature over there. Okay. I may as well do some other things. I know I want my temperatures to be read in that format.
About a
And I also want to give it a unit of measure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add a unit of measure here. Let's save that. Great. I was going to do the same for level for Benson's level transmitter, but for time I'll leave that out for the moment. But this metadata, this kind of the properties of these tags, you are now setting them inside the historian as close to the edge as possible. And they are going to be then made available to all the apps that you connect to the REST API, to the Explorer trending tool, and to other systems that are going to start using this data. Maybe your information management systems, your business intelligence systems, your ERP systems, etc., etc. Great. I think the next step then is to take you into the Explorer. Let's go and visualize some data that's coming in. So this is the Explorer starting page. Just very quickly on all of our UIs, you're going to find that we have a link to the appropriate knowledge base articles. That's going to take you directly into the articles and videos relating to that component. We do have a bug report form, so if you do find some bugs, please let us know. We want to make this product as great and as useful as possible for you. And we also have a feedback report form. So if there are any feature requests or ideas, anything, please let us know. You will notice that Explorer is currently in beta. We will be releasing it today in beta form as well. And that is purely because, like Jeff said, there are a few features that haven't quite made it in, and we want to get them in before we release. Okay, so we can hit the button here to get started. And let me just orientate you a little bit in terms of what this window is and how it's made up. So you presented initially with two bands. The top band is what we call the context band. And the bottom band, which we can add more of, they are known as the trend bands. Now, the context band gives us the ability to have a wider view of your data, and then we use that wider view, that broader view, to navigate time. If I go into my tag picker here, you can see I've selected my local historian. I can connect multiple historians to this tool. I've selected the local. I've got my 3 data sets that we saw earlier. Let's go and see if we are actually getting some data from the Sparkplug connector. You'll notice the metadata that I added, machine 1, the temperature, that has come through, and I can use these tick boxes as selection items to filter out my tag list. I can also use just a plain filter, which will filter on the name of the tag as well as the description. So let's go. I've got my temperature here. I'm going to add it in. So I can see I'm starting to get data at the moment from the little green line is now. What I'm going to do is add that same tag over here. Now let's just explore what happens a little bit how this frame works. So we call this a frame. And what the frame does, it sets up the time frame, literally, that we are looking at in the trend bands. So the leading edge of the frame on this side corresponds to the leading edge of your trend band. And likewise, the trailing edge corresponds to the end of this chart here. So if I move this band around, I should now see my trend jump into the middle. This is the data that is currently coming in live. Doesn't feel like it's updating. Not sure why.
Graeme, we might want to just real quick in the last 2 minutes show, without teaching, just show how you would build out on the Juice Factory, and then we're going to have to wrap.
And
I
I
was
have
just,
been changing the temperature. You can see that coming through. So it has
Yeah.
been picking up.
oh, there we go. It is actually updating. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new trend. I'm not going to save this trend for now. What I want to demonstrate is a few features using our Juice Factory demo.
We really are out of time. So you're going to have to, while you're building, we're going to answer some questions. Okay.
Okay.
So the audience gets a double treat.
Perfect.
You can watch Graeme build out multiple frames on his Juice Factory. We had some questions I want to come back to. Benson, the question that originally was being asked about channels, getting a channel wrong. What if you're doing like 420 or millivolt? What is there any danger of blowing out a channel if you?
We haven't seen that, and we do have some protections in there to prevent that from happening. But most of what we're dealing with here, you know, small voltages and milliamps, of course, on the current side. We don't do AC inputs into Rio. Everything is DC inputs or powered switch. So generally, I mean, there's thousands of these things in the field, and we have yet to have one come back because they wired it up wrong.
Okay, cool. Question around, is Timebase considered open source with all pull requests going through Flow as controller? But want to make a very clear statement. You do not need to engage with Flow as a product whatsoever in order to use Timebase. You can go directly to timebase.com, download Timebase. It's completely independent. As far as Flow software is concerned, we will treat Timebase as a historian. That means we will treat it as a data source. Over time, we will take some of the cool features that you can do with Flow Analytics and we will release them as modules on top of Timebase. Long-term plan is you should be able to use Timebase and do all of the analytics you would ever want to do with your data, as well as some cool modules in the future like data ops based. Maybe do data conversions, take something in real time and publish it somewhere else. Lots of potential upside, but you do not need to use Flow software or the Flow information platform in any way to use Timebase. Thanks for asking that, Justin. Rafi said, hey, can we connect this to HiveMQ? Absolutely. Could you use it with Ignition? Yeah, Ignition acts as an OPC UA server. Arlen and the team at Cirrus Link have some great transmission modules and distributor modules. We could connect to any of the MQTT servers.
And Jeff, can I add to that real quickly? Cirrus Link, Arlen and Wes and Nathan and the team have developed also a free Chariot MQTT client. I didn't get a chance to play around with it, so I didn't feature it here, but it does do Sparkplug-B and MQTT. So a shout out to those guys. While I wasn't able to feature it, know that that's another MQTT client that's free that you can use to query your broker and get all the data.
I'll just point out what Graeme has done is he's put two different frames on that context window, frame 1 and frame 2, and he has linked the same tag twice in his trend band. So you've got frame 1 up top left represented in green, frame 2 represented in blue, and you can see that the start time of those two frames have aligned, and you've run the same tag from two different time periods overlapped in one visualization. Second piece, he's taken two different tags that are state-based, and he's shown them with their enumerations so that I don't have to watch a stair step to understand state. In fact, I get to see state change and pick up the labels of that enumeration pairing when that happens. Great time to see downtime, product changes, lot or batch changes, or machine state. All right, last thing. Sorry, Graeme. I cut you short. Benson, we know what the price of Timebase is. Free is just your time and your hardware. What's the pricing of the Rio as you showed it today, not counting sensors and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, just the Rio itself is $995 US, quantity 1. But I didn't even tip you off on this, Jeff, but we will be offering a 10-pack of Rios at a substantial discount coming up in the first of the year, thinking right around $7,500 is a 10-pack. So
wow.
a couple different options. That's brand new. We're discussing internally, but we expect to announce the 10-pack of Rios coming out in January 2025.
So based on what we saw today, for $1,000 plus whatever your sensors are, you've got the ability to convert legacy equipment into data ready. You can securely get that data into an open protocol standard. I'm sorry, to a standard protocol, not open. And you can log that data, store it, historize it, report on it, get it into Excel, do whatever you want with it because you've automated the process of data acquisition. Take it and run with it.
We've talked about other things on Integrate Live multiple times, but I think that it's worth saying again. Once you get your hands on a next gen PLC like the Rio or the Epic, and you start to understand that you can do things that you couldn't do before, like in a PLC panel, I've got a Cambium radio, I've got an Antera managed switch, I've got components that don't have an API, a REST API. Well, I can get the MIB file, I can run that MIB file, I can use a Node-RED SNMP or go into the Opto, and now I can pull those tags directly into a tag in the Epic or the Rio, and now I can start to historize. Think about RSSI. You've got 50 radios out in the field. All of a sudden, now I can see what my RSSI is constantly. Huge benefit. You start to be able to see what the noise is or all those things. And those things weren't available in the past easily. Now, once you have this next gen PLC and a historian, just start to think about the opportunity you have to get data that was always kind of orphaned and locked in before. Now this whole thing opens up for us. And to think about what you could do, it's just becomes kind of like, how big can you think?
Yep. Benson, you have a global distribution?
Yes, we do. It's available all over the world through national distributors and, of course, from Opto 22 directly. All of our pricing is published, available on the website. All the documentation's free. All the training is free. Online training is free and support. So if you get on our website and you'll see a little chat window down at the bottom, you have some questions about what you saw today. We have experienced engineers that man the chat. It's not a chat bot. It's not an admin. It's actual engineers on that chat. So if you have a question about what you saw today and we didn't get to it today in this session, we'll follow up, of course, but ask one of our engineers through our chat and they'll get you an answer right away.
And Graeme, let's be generous. Benson has no idea we're going to do this. Benson, we're going to give a member of the audience today a Groove Rio, courtesy of Flow Software. Tell you what, 73 of you are still on, an hour and 40 minutes in. You're the best. I swear this is the best community in the
No
world.
doubt.
Go to timebase.com, click on the grab it now. Yeah, I know you do, Rafi. Rafi said, I want one. Ricardo wants one too. I think everybody on here wants one. Here's what we're asking you to do. Go to Timebase and click the registration. You won't be able to grab version 1 yet. We're about 3 hours from releasing it. But if you go ahead right now and fill out the registration with your contact info, here's what's going to happen. When version 1 releases, I'm going to send it to you this afternoon. Just registering for it puts you in a drawing. We are going to give one of you a free Rio, and we'll use the local distributor to get it to you. It'll be on the backside of the new year. I will just tell you that because Graeme and I are getting ready to take a much deserved rest. But for everybody that registers now for Timebase, actually, you know what, Graeme? Let me go ahead and it still says beta. Well, I'll wait till we're over and I'll launch the new site. Register now. Don't download it. I'll send you the updated link here this afternoon, but you are in the drawing for the free Rio. Benson?
I don't need a Rio, but I'd love that link to the Timebase. I've been playing around with it, an early version, and I can't wait to get my hands with that new configuration profile in there.
All right. Graeme, thank you for being patient and letting me stop you. He did show the REST API. You're going to get lots of videos around Timebase. I'd like to thank some of the content creators that have already done it. Ricardo, I saw that you're on. Thanks for your video. Rafi, thank you. Everybody, thank you for being here. Benson, thank you.
This is for
My
Ricardo.
pleasure.
What's that, Graeme?
Ricardo, I hope you've seen that.
What's that?
just tooltips on the buttons. That's purely for Ricardo.
Oh,
Ricardo, you got your really you
Ricardo,
did that,
put that in. Yeah.
show him again.
Nice.
Hey, there you
Right
go.
on.
Awesome.
Thank you for your feedback, guys.
That's
Yes. And same here. We watch, we look at all LinkedIn posts. If you have feature requests like that, Ricardo, well done. And Graeme and Jeff to step up so quickly and respond to that is amazing.
Well, everybody, thank you. Alan, as always, it's well, it's been a pleasure, buddy. It's such good time spent with you and your jokes.
Good year.
And I've got to everybody, best of end of year, happy holidays, and we really do appreciate the continued support. We will see you on the next one, last Wednesday of January. Thanks, everybody.